The apocalypse is about to begin, leaving Jesse, Tulip, and Cass as the only ones who could stop it. But what exactly is the plan when you go up against God, who knows everything and can turn all your allies against you? It's the penultimate episode of Preacher, Season 4, Episode 9, Overture. Hey everyone, D here, and welcome to this week's review of Preacher. So yes, of course, all the spoilers are coming your way. And as always, do want to remind you about our quick jump index system. Right down in the description below, we'll have this entire reviewed, codified, titleized, time-coded. You can watch the middle of the review first, you can watch the end second, you can watch the beginning last. You can watch this review in any order you'd like. Alright, so getting down to the wire, the second to last episode of Preacher, appropriately titled Overture, as you know from music, that is sort of the beginning summation. This is the setting of all of the places we are beginning the music, we are beginning the show, we are beginning the tale as it's about to be told. And considering that the Apocalypse is a 2020 review show, variety acts, comedy, and everything, seems sort of a secondarily appropriate title there as well. But yes, we are getting the apocalypse ready. We have our trio as the only ones, of course, ready to stop it. And what this episode really kind of focuses and deals with, I think, is the challenges of going up against God. I mean, kind of everybody deals with it. Jesus does in trying to show his breakdancing skills that, hey, he could be the Messiah. It doesn't have to be Humperdoo. But no, to, of course, the temptations of Cassidy, the testing of Tulip, and really just the in-your-face demands with Jesse Custer as well. And also kind of, again, the challenge is not only against going up against such a supreme being, but the fact that he can turn everyone against you. He knows everything. He can do anything. He can grant any wish that he wants. How do you stand up against someone like that? Not to mention just the imposing presence. What is it that Jesse say to Tulip in the elevator? All of those times, even when he was showing me his cruelty, even though we were talking about the end of the world, even when his teeth were tearing at my flesh, I never thought to use my power to stop him. And that sort of is Jesse's little story. I mean, again, everybody is completing their journey here, too. Cassidy facing against his humanity, vampirism. Tulip, her, God, not really caring about God at all. And, of course, the family curse. And then for Jesse himself, putting back his preacher love of God and knowing that he's going to have to step up and do the right thing, even if the Almighty is incapable of it. So the episode sort of opens with, I think, the perfect setting of the scene. In fact, the first about 15 minutes or so really setting up our scene and dealing with some appropriate little challenges and drama to deal with. Mainly the return of Jesse just after Tulip and Cass have had sex. Of course, 3 months after, the whole time nothing, they finally go into it, and the following morning is when Jesse shows up. Of course, poor Cassidy. The laugh at the end of last episode, I think, was sort of his perfect summation of, yeah, that's exactly the way that things work. But I really have to say, I loved the whole opening bit. I mean, first off, that first shot of Jesse there, staring at the camera, the big old eye hole, and then the dropping of the eye patch was just perfect. The anger at him, everything, but also in some ways the humanity that he's gained from his journey. I mean, yes, it's appropriate that Tulip and Cass are going to have that initial discussion. Should we tell him that we just had sex? Which, as the season opened, that bit of information not entirely useful. So maybe just hold on that. It's the idea at least thrown out until Jesse walks in the room, then Tulip just says it. But come on, Jesse's been to hell and back. Literally been to hell and back. It does put things in perspective, as he tells Cass later on. He was gone. They could do these things, but now he's back. So I mean, he does sort of end it there with the, I understand what you did. I'm glad that you told me. I mean, really, that whole opening scene, how just sort of detached he was from everything that was going on, I think was sort of a perfect character arc summation for Jesse to sort of reach that point of like, this is what's important. We're friends. I love y'all no matter what. But we kind of have to go do this. And that was sort of a great wrap-up, too. Is he's like, all right, I'm glad you told me. Is there anything else? And Cassie's just, yeah, we got to go save Humperdoo, destroy the Grail, and hopefully end the apocalypse. You know, small thing. So it's just sort of a great bit of sort of wrapping up that little bit, dealing with it quickly, appropriately, because there's no time for that sort of drama, and really getting the group going on and ready to attack Masada. Got to get Humperdoo, who of course is being treated like a king, a rock star. An interesting sort of play on that when we get to talking about Eugene. Yeah, everyone's dealing with a little rock star feeling right now, but Humperdoo definitely feeling like it, being treated as, and I love how they set up the apocalypse. The countdown 1 hour is the Apocalypse 2020 Revue. It's a big show. It's a big dance. They've got comedians. They've got ethnic acts. All the way down until when Humperdoo, the Messiah, will do his dance to signal the beginning of the apocalypse. Why a dance? I don't know, to be perfectly honest. Just did something, just his presence, just to amaze people? Is it just, why? I don't know. Why does anything happen here? It's an hour. The world's about to end. Not a lot of time to deal with it. Star loving it, looking really, enjoying his return of looks. It kind of goes through a whole thing with Star in this episode. So it was just, like I said, a sort of a great, perfect setup. The whole rock star bit. Everyone's crazy. We're watching a show. And what that allows is for the infiltration for Jesse and Tulip and Cass is the fact they're going to deal with limited guards. Everybody's up. They're celebrating. Fewer people down watching it. Who's expecting to be attacked as the apocalypse is about to happen? Not the Grail. Come on, that's a mistake on their part, right? So yeah, our trio's assault on Masada initially going well, and I love the little montage action they did. I love when they do the sort of split frame bit, and you know, it's almost kind of like comic book paneling. It works very well, especially with this type of show, which is already over the top, and we get all those great fish shots and mean looks and guys flying back. I mean, again, fun little bit. Initial approach, very successful, of course, but that doesn't last long. As of course God gets involved and just starts picking off and separating everyone. And look, if there is one thing that we can draw as a conclusion about God, certainly in the previous episode and continue on with this one, is he's an ass. He really is a horrible person. He is just not divine in a godly, goodly sense the way we do it. Just petty and angry and vengeful and murderous and unsympathetic. And cruel in so many ways, especially the emotional component. And that was a great bit with the encounter with Cassidy. Because he grabs him and separates him. And again, you're not expecting God like this. He's not in his godly robes anyway. He's looking like Crockett from Miami Vice. He's just got the shirt on and a little sport jacket. And he's just like, okay. He's cruising through Masada's halls. Looking good. But the jumping of Cassidy that he's holding back, and then he's just telling and just tempting them. There was the mountain of cocaine, and then the girl Tulip all to yourself, and then home, remember home, and the whole transport. I mean, that's emotional cruelty. That whole sequence there actually is really so mean, giving Cass that desire that he wants back. I mean, and again, beautifully shot. You see his brother that was killed, and he stands up and then realizes he's got the sun on his hand and it's not on fire, that this is a whole thing. His family coming out. I mean, This is God. God can do these things. How do you say no to the greatest desire that you want to be given to you? And I also love how they split it, because they tell them they can all be yours for one thing. And it does feel like if you kill Jesse. But no, it's just looking after Humperdoo until the end. Stopping if Jesse actually gets up there, or Tulip or anybody else. That may create a conflict. But again, an unexpected initial offering. I will give you all of these things if you just watch after the Messiah for a little while. That's it. That's all you got to do. So yeah, just so cruel with that emotional manipulation. I mean, come on. How do you resist being tempted by God? But it gets us to another wonderful interaction. The discussion between Cassidy and God about the value of humanity. I mean, sure, yeah, you get Paul Newman and stuff. I mean, you get some great things. I don't know if the mistakes that he made. What was it? Dogs die if they eat chocolate. Don Jr. Hilarious. What was the last one? I mean, testicles. Yes, testicles. I'm assuming the outside part and how easily that they're damaged. Some bad designs. I mean, it's just sort of a fun kind of back and forth. You aren't expecting God and a vampire to be debating the value of humanity when God is talking humanity, the negativity, and the vampire is trying to talk them up. So it was... I just love those little moments. I mean, we're showing the cruelty of God, and then we're showing the real positive end of Cass. And I think its resistance on God's assault was perfect. I mean, it was beautifully sort of wailed out. But again, he said no until he said yes, because ultimately, again, it's God. Can give you whatever you want, and certainly do a lot more if you don't do what he wants. So Cass, really hard position there, but sort of beautifully played out. Just great dichotomies of interest and focus. Yeah, it's just, again, God going against humanity and a vampire talking for humanity. Just not the scene you expect to see outside of Preacher. But of course, Cassidy not the only one being tempted from Jesse, but Tulip gets her moment too to stand toe-to-toe. And that was just beautiful. Look, the temptations of God against both Cassidy and Tulip, and even Jesse from Cassidy, Tulip, and even Jesse to a certain extent, are all wonderful ways of showing the darkness and cruelty, reasons why God in so many ways deserves to be taken out. But I think this one was a little bit special. Ruth Negga is awesome. But her careless attitude against God was such an unexpected direction, and the way that she is able to play that shift during our 60-second test, that is why it is our See of the Week for this week. Because Tulip should be afraid of God. That's what Jesse says. The Tulip's like, I'm not afraid, and you should be. And her response was perfect. Yeah, I know. Like, she should be afraid of God. But she's not. And it really plays beautifully in this shot. I mean, first of all, she pulls herself out of the elevator, and God's just like, come on. And her face is just, again, not anger, not anything else, just kind of like, oh my God, is this what I have to deal with now? This is not what I expected. But she goes with it. And even when God's like, sit down, and she does, and he's like, wait, I was expecting a fight, a thing. Throughout this, Tulip is giving God exactly what he doesn't want. I mean, he says straight out, I want to fight. But she's not fighting him. She despises him, is so angry. That manifests in a complete lack of fear. And I think they play that beautifully. And exactly as he wants one thing, she's going to never. You want to fight? Great, then I'll just give in. I'm not going to give you that. You wanna punch me? Nah, I'm going to think that I'm just over that. No, I don't need to do that. Nothing that you want, I am going to give you. And that was a great counter to set up in this scene, and a beautiful example of Tulip's character. But of course, got that old hair curse, that family curse that always screw it up, and that's what God plays into, and that unto itself was another example of his cruelty. I will give you 60 seconds to not hit me. And if you do that, I will let you all go. I'll even cancel the apocalypse. Exactly what they want, because he knows that she is going to give into it. Why? Because he's God. And he knows everything. It was beautifully brought out in the scene when he's talking to Humperdoo about Cain and Abel. He does that opening bit, you know. I know everything. And still he was like, no, God, I don't know. He's like, but I'm telling you, I know everything. I know your brother is bad. And it's the same thing. You can't go up against God, who knows all of your buttons. And in 60 seconds, he can play with 59 of those. And that's just fun to him. And that really, and that last second, oh, that hits hard. I mean, he starts out weak. Murderer, thief, you do all these things. These words are going to hurt. Dallas, well, that does. Loss of the daughter, the anger a parent's going to feel against the loss of a child, brings that all up, and then suckers her into, and you know the thing, you want to know why I did it? The why, the big question, again, what we all want to know. You are face to face with God. You can get the answers to your questions of why do these horrible things happen? And he can't remember. Just dismisses all of those human concerns. It was the perfect thing that he did last week with Jesse, when Jesse was saying, I resisted, I did everything, my Lord, you don't have to destroy us. It brings right to the end, and he says, yeah, you were so close, but you wanted to, so I'm going to hang you for that. For Tulip, the exact same thing. What she wants is answers, and he denies it from her. Exactly what she was doing to him, he does to her. So yeah, she's going to shoot him. That is the flaw of her character. Being human requires having flaws. It wasn't a fair competition from any point, but it was just such a perfect shift and change from the not caring to suddenly being in that position, to fate of the world be damned, I'm going to shoot this guy in the head. Which, of course, he's got. There's nothing that you can do with that, so she's out. Now I gotta say, they did end that well. With God going to fill up his bucket of blood, which of course ends up being for a shredded Cass to pull himself back together with. And told well to sort of imply that he was about to cut up Tulip. But, I mean, just, they do it smartly in the fact that when he's looking at Tulip, he's looking down, and when he grabs the knife and is like, let's do this, he's looking straight ahead. So it sort of implies the poor gentleman thrown in the wall. I don't want to die. Sorry. Again, God, so cruel. Just throwing people into walls. Even the thing about with Humperdoo there. Oh my God, the hairstylist just hurt his head a little bit. Puts her halfway into a wall. Just, he's cruel. God is a cruel person. And of course, he's got one last person left to torture, is Jesse. And yeah, look, the scene with Cass on the floor all shredded up, that was emotional. That was hard, and it was played beautifully. I said no. He tempted me, and I said no. Until I said yes. That's the power that Jesse is up against. And I have to say, I was honestly surprised that God had that whole scene with him. Because with the power of Genesis, which could possibly command God, why would God want to take that risk? But then I think it's that all-knowing, and it's the confidence. He'd already faced off with Jesse. He bit Jesse's eye out, and Jesse didn't do anything to stop him. So I think he just feels at this point he has nothing to fear from Jesse. Jesse is still at this point, with everything about to happen, can't stand against God. It's not in his character. And I think he plays this well. So again, it's this final kind of torture that he does with Jesse there, and trying to command him to give him Genesis. But that's the other tweak in this, because he can command Jesse. He tries, but Jesse never has to obey. And I think that is the other side benefit of having Genesis in you. You have the voice of God, therefore you are not commanded by the voice of God. Which gives our great little fight back and forth until Jesse suddenly realizes, oh my God, wait a minute, you're God and you can't take this from me. You can't reach down. That is the fear that God has of Genesis, in which he plays of this as an unholy thing. It should never have existed. Yes, the child of the archangel and the demon who have been fighting constantly at the holy bar and grail. God, I love that title. Which we get a good confirmation on that in this episode. But yeah, that's the power that he has. He can't, while God has to have Jesse give it to him willingly, he can beat him down, he can argue with him, he can tempt him, he can cajole him, but he can't command him. And that is the cool imitation that we find that God actually ends up having against Jesse. That here at this point, if Jesse does just make that leap, make that step, he could beat God. I mean, God says it. What if your power could command me to do whatever you wanted? But God's got, again, another ace in the hole, and that being the saint, who Jesse has been using the voice to call and summon to him. It took me a while to figure out what he was shouting out. I was wondering if he was summoning down like Fjord's angels and stuff to sort of help him in this battle against God. Though, in thinking about that, that really makes a lot less sense. But yeah, summoning the saint to stand against God. He can use his gun to kill God. Except God, really, it's God. He's got the saint in his back pocket because he can tempt him with anything. You can remind him of everything. His lost child, his name, William. That's a good thing to know. The saint is named William, which I have to laugh about because that's the Men in Black's name in Westworld. Interesting little parallels. But, yeah, so just as Jesse thinks that he can use the saint to take down God, no, the real thing is God has pulled up the saint and can make any deal that he wants with the saint, including his family, if the saint deals with Jesse. Perfect way to set up a tense moment, a climactic cliffhanger right before the final episode. But the trio does have an interesting surprise ally coming to their aid in the form of Featherstone, who had really, I don't know, all of her dreams come true with Star and also her nightmares. In a really disturbing bit. Look, Star is not a people person. And I love that whole bit where she's finally doing the big flirtation about it's about to be the end of the world. This is the time. There is no other time than now to make the move. And it's like they're almost having that moment. And the look, just the drop in her face was perfect. A Star's like, oh, and they're looking and they're making the moment. And you see her just in the perfect wide shot that Star just now like, you're a handsome woman. Let me tweak at the nipples and the breasts. It's just so sexy that I am doing right now. It's like, this is what you wanted, Featherstone, for all this time. And it is definitely not going to go the way that you wanted. What was that in season 2 where we had the mistaken call to the prostitutes that ended up sending the gang of guys down that kept Star for like the weekend? I'm not saying that the whole fisting strap-on bit with Featherstone is a direct result of that, but it did make me think about this might be a result of Star's journeys. Very just beautifully perfect messed up scene right there. I was wondering why Featherstone had the sheet over her. I thought it was just the disturbance of like, this did not go the way that I wanted. And that could still actually be the case. Just a perfect reveal. One in the suit, like, what? And then we get the tam down, it's the strap. It just doesn't look comfortable. But, you know, everybody's into something. I'm making no judgment here. But we give it up. Okay, so the apocalypse, not going to be the apocalypse. This is apocalypse light and incomplete. There's supposed to be some people saved, Star specifically, and a few other people, not the Danes or the hippies. Those were definitely out. But of course, it was Hoover 2 that was supposed to send those messages, and Hoover 2 was an undercover cop that wasn't going to do anything that was going to help the apocalypse. So yeah, we have a nice conflict here. A last-minute rush for Star to run and save himself. And a few select people. Not something that Featherstone was expecting. And that last speech, I don't think... Then what is it for? What? Power? Perverted sex? Murder? Control over others? Featherstone's a fanatic. She is dedicated to the cause of the Grail. And if it's not for the apocalypse, then what is the whole purpose of the Grail? She is having that conflict of conscience. Everything that she believed in has now been robbed and taken from her. So the only thing that she could do is to help her mortal enemy, Tulip. Just a great final little shot scene there with the door opening up, and you can just... a wonderful silent exchange of like, I'm going to have to help you, because if the apocalypse isn't the way it's supposed to be, if all of the stories that we have heard are wrong, if this is just about human power and the destruction of everybody else that you don't like, not good enough for Featherstone. Again, fanatic. But at least now a fanatic that might be on our trio side. Alright, just a couple of small things. Like last week, we did get another little quick insight into Eugene's world still going on, about ready to be released, because they thought that he ate the preacher, and with no preacher in his poop, I guess they gotta let him go. I don't know Australian law, so I'm just gonna say okay. However, the prison father... not a nice person at all. My God. Why does God keep you around? Comic relief? Appetite suppression? I guess with you, there probably isn't even a plan. I mean, geez, you're supposed to build people up, Father. Help them out. I guess he's already succumbing to the approaching apocalypse here. For Eugene, though, I love that he's still fixated. Rock star. Yeah, I could play the guitar, I could be a rock star. And the preacher does this whole little breakdown. Maybe there is no plan for you. Yeah, rock star. Gotta love Eugene's constant optimism. And he had a nice vision of himself as a rock star, playing the band. I was wondering if that was going to go up at the whole 2020 Apocalypse review. He's performing at the same time, the Apocalypse show is starting. They seem that they should go together. But what really goes together is Eugene and a Melbourne cabbie. I don't think he's dead. His foot was moving. I know, it's not like anybody else where he was dead and just came back. He was never dead. He was sent to hell, but he was still alive. So he should still be alive now. Just with a cabbie on him. I still hope Eugene will be well. I love his optimism. As I mentioned before, we did have confirmation this episode that Genesis is in fact the child of the Archangel and the Demon that have been fighting and are continuing to fight. I guess they take a break just as soon as Cass says that it's about to begin, which was kind of a funny little moment. We'll kill each other until you... oh, the mission's about to start? Okay, we can stop. Take care of our child, of our loved one. Interesting. I mean, again, I'm glad that we know this information. It's good that we know this before the end of the episode. It seems appropriate setup, but also with sort of that implying and the whole take care of our child and the coming thing. Definitely more to be played. Though, again, when God did try to order Jesse and the whole thing reverberated back, God wasn't expecting that. So, Genesis still has some cards to play. As we are being shown the backstage of our Apocalypse 2020 review, I love the little overhead speaks, everyone being called into their positions. My favorite, of course, cue the mimes. That's how you know it's the apocalypse. And of course, mass shootings may be another sign of the coming apocalypse. Gotta love the one on the morning show. it seemed perfect as the introduction for the 2020 Apocalypse Review anyway. Just, again, brutal, headshot, right down. That is not a good way to start your morning. And of course, let us not forget Jesus versus Hitler, the true showdown of the apocalypse. Kind of a beautiful little summation of their bits. I mean, one, I loved Hitler trying to console Jesus as he's been rejected. I mean, all the time of Hitler trying to encourage Jesus with his breakdancing before tonight in front of God, the whole consoling bit. It's sweet for a moment, but of course, he's Hitler. You know, he's not in it to lose it. He's not there to help out. He's a killer, as he says. Again, another great little bit. Well, you know, I'm against murder. Yeah, but I'm a murderer. You know, when I was beaten back in Stalingrad, I just kept pushing. Which was actually really the big problem. You should have stopped long before Stalingrad, Hitler. You're not learning your lessons. But what does that come down to? Jesus standing up to Hitler. I mean, come on, Hitler's cruel. He just thinks Divine Humperdoo is going to be a more impressive opponent than Jesus. I mean, that's just cruel. Really cruel. Jesus doesn't get a break throughout this. So I love that it ends up being a fisticuffs between Jesus and Hitler. I really want to see how that fight wraps itself up. All right, well, I think that pretty much covers everything. So next week is the series finale. Will they stop the apocalypse? Will they stop God's plan? How will this wrap up? Will any of them survive? And is that really the point? To be honest, I don't have any expectations. I have no idea how this show is going to wrap itself up, but I cannot wait to see how it all plays out. So next week should be quite a ride, and in fact will be our final ride. So very sorry to hear about that, but do want to take one brief moment and give congratulations to the cast and crew of Game of Thrones, who won Best Drama at tonight's Emmys, and Peter Dinklage for Best Supporting Actor. A lot of nominations, not a whole lot of wins, and I know it was a divisive final season, but I think it's hard to argue the fact that for most of its 10 years, Game of Thrones was the frickin' show on TV. Amazing storytelling. They did an amazing job. They changed television forever. So even if it wasn't their best season, I think they still deserve the award. And Dinklage most certainly did. There were quite a few scenes in that final season where I was specifically saying in my reviews, this is Dinklage winning the Emmy right here. So anyway, congratulations to all of them. But that will wrap us up for now. Thank you so much for joining me with this review. And if you enjoyed it, please go ahead and hit that like button. Thoughts, ideas, and comments, you know where to put them, right down in the section below. You can always catch me on Twitter and Instagram. I am at Darren Jakes. Please subscribe if you're not a subscriber. We're wrapping this up, but we've got season 10 of The Walking Dead. We have the final season of Mr. Robot, and in November we've got The Mandalorian, first series outside on the Disney Plus streaming service. So a lot of fun stuff to watch. Don't miss any of those reviews if you're a subscriber, and do that by clicking this button right here. And we'll go ahead and throw up a couple of our latest reviews right here for you to check out. So that's going to be it for me. I'm D, and I'm out of here. Catch you guys next time. Bye-bye.